Welcome, everyone, to episode 4 of Seek, Search, Succeed, a podcast dedicated to helping sales enablement pros find new roles. Today, we're joined by Rachel Antone. Rachel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jared. Really excited to talk about job searching and what things have been like for me in the past few months.
Yeah, so you are a sales enablement pro who is looking for a new role. And I want to talk about that. But before we do, tell the people just a little bit about who you are when you're not working in enabling sellers.
For sure. So I am based in Austin, so outside a lot. I actually do kickboxing on the side. So I'm an instructor at a studio here in Austin.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that too before we get too far into this. So.
Definitely. Lots to talk about there. I also have a dog. She's a little Chiweenie. And yeah, I grew up in Austin and don't know if I'll leave anytime soon.
Awesome. So I haven't heard of a Chiweenie. I'm pretty sure I can picture it though, based on what I think it is. Is it just a Chihuahua and a wiener dog mixed together?
Yep. You got it.
I love it. Is that a common dog breed? I'm not familiar with this.
It is in Texas, actually. My dog actually has the pointy ears, so she doesn't have floppy ears like your typical dachshund. But yeah, they're actually pretty popular in like more of the rural parts of Texas.
I think one of the best things that came like in a post-COVID world is everyone working from home on Zoom. People's dogs bark and like come into videos, and I've met so many dogs via Zoom. It's like my new favorite hobby is to meet pets via Zoom.
Oh my gosh, same here. And now we finally get to see each other's pets. We couldn't do that when we were all in the office before. So
yeah, got to find the silver lining in some of that stuff. So let's talk about, how did you get into enablement in the first place?
So I actually started in sales. I went to school for nutrition thinking that I was going to continue with that track in healthcare, but learned that there was a lot of growth to be found in sales. So that was my starting point. And as I got better and better at sales and sales development, I learned quickly that I wanted to be able to share my best practices with other folks on the team. So really acted as a mentor to a lot of other business development and sales development reps in my earlier roles, and realized that leadership was probably going to be a better track for me. But the more I learned about the corporate side of revenue, I also learned about enablement and the fact that there's a whole entire job that's dedicated to supporting sales teams with content and with trainings, which were my personal favorite parts of my job whenever I got a chance to, just share any of the things that I was doing that were working for me to be a high performer on the teams that I was on. I just wanted to share that information with internal members of the team. So eventually I started working at First Up. They had actually reached out to me for a role and knew that that's exactly the kind of role that I wanted to be in. I just felt kind of in my natural habitat, being able to just focus on the strategy, how to make sellers more successful. And I was able to work with a lot of different leaders to better understand what are the things that these sellers need in order to understand customers better, and how to actually speak to prospects like they're human beings and not robots. So yeah.
So when you broke into sales, did you like go to work for a company that did sales in the medical field or like the nutrition field, or was it a totally new thing?
It was totally new. So I started at a company called EB Quick Start, and that company kind of handles every industry. They're basically a third-party business development firm. So we would handle the business development side of things for some healthcare companies, but we would also speak to retail, technology, IT, all sorts of different industries. So I got a pretty good spread of different types of businesses, and that kind of helped me narrow down what type of industry I wanted to continue on with.
So you're doing nutrition and that's going well. And then you decide, hey, I want to be in sales for some crazy reason. And you're successful at that. And you're really good at working with people. What kind of stuff were you doing to kind of upskill yourself in enablement as you're in sales, trying to transition to this enablement role? It can be a tough transition for some people. Were you doing things to upskill yourself? Did it just kind of seem natural? How did that go?
I learned about different methodologies like spin, medic, challenger. So also made sure to educate myself on more of the traditional selling styles as well.
It seems like there's a lot of extroverts in enablement because there's that training, that being in front of people element. I saw something on LinkedIn just today talking about how something said there needs to be more introverts in executive and leadership and training roles because we're really good at listening and staying quiet and making sure everyone's perspectives are heard and then implementing those things. And I'm really introverted as well. I try not to show it when I do stuff like this. But after I get done working and training and talking all day, all I want to do is sit on the couch and watch movies and just not talk to a soul. It can be tough.
Agreed.
So now that you're searching for a new role, I get a chance to talk to a lot of people who are in this job hunt, and it can be frustrating and it can take a long time. So I want to talk a little bit about what the process has been like for you. How long have you been looking for something new?
I have only been looking since I was recently laid off back in February. So, like I said, whenever I started my role in enablement, I was like, I am in this for the long haul. I was very much looking forward to staying for a long time. But with that being said, I have definitely taken a lot of time since February to better understand what is going to make me most successful in an organization, and also what are the things that I need to be looking for as far as leadership, strategy, overall learning culture. I think that those have all been really important discoveries that I've come across while kind of soul searching and having the time to actually think about what I want versus what's right in front of me, because having a job can make you be a bit complacent in a way. If you're content with where you're at, there's no reason to consider what else is out there. But now that I don't really have an option, I definitely have been, like I said, focusing on that, leaning on LinkedIn a lot to just hear what other people are doing to be successful. But it definitely kind of feels like uncharted territory these days with the market and with seeing all the news about different companies laying off hundreds and sometimes thousands of employees at a time. It's definitely sad and discouraging and negative. So I've had to take my fair share of breaks to just kind of regroup, figure out if I still need to be searching for a new job. How can I kind of freshen up my strategy to not feel burnt out? So I'll do a lot of variation or I have done a lot of variation in the way that I've been job seeking, whether it be I started with just applying, like purely applying to like 20 jobs a day. That was pretty grueling. So
Do you do cover letters? They do a custom resume for everyone, or are you just kind of like, let's get these out there?
Um, that's a good question. I actually have not been leaning on the cover letters as much. I did work with a career coach in the very beginning, who mentioned, leverage cover letters to include as many keywords as possible. I do customize my resumes because different jobs are going to have different priorities. So I do think it's important, at least as an exercise, to figure out, okay, how do I gear the projects that I've worked on in the past to apply that information to the projects this team is working on. So, but I haven't really leaned on cover letters as much.
So one thing you guys could do that's really easy is take the job posting, copy it, paste it into ChatGPT or some other AI tool, and say, write a cover letter for this job. And it will give you a good cover letter. And then you can just kind of fine tune it and make it your own. That's a good way to have cover letters for a bunch of applications without having to like write a college level essay for every job you're going to apply for. Because what sucks is that the reality is there's some machine, right, that's grading your resume and your cover letter. And a lot of times this doesn't even get through to a human to look at, which I think is kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good tip. I have not tried that, so I definitely will. And I know that cover letters can oftentimes be optional, but you never know when it is going to matter. So I think that's a great tip right there.
Yeah. So on episode 2 of this show, we had Rachel Antone on. She's one of the board members of the Chicago Sales Enablement Society. I don't know if you know her. She was previously a librarian and a teacher. And she was saying that she nerds out over reading cover letters. Like that's her thing she likes to do, and see if people are able to explain why they're looking for a new role and why they like that role. So it might be a good thing to add, especially if you can do it without having to spend, a ton of time. It's not going to slow you down in your pursuit of new things. You've
Mm-hmm.
also been doing a lot of networking, and that's how we met. It's through some networking stuff. How is that? Is that one of the new strategies? Is that something you're doing to keep it fresh? How's that going?
I have been networking in different ways throughout this whole process. I like the first day that I was laid off, I immediately reached out to everybody that I knew, made a post on LinkedIn, and I think that that was really helpful, like for me mentally to just be able to share, like, hey, by the way, I got laid off, and for people to just kind of unite around the fact that it's a hard thing. You don't have to suffer through it alone. I've definitely stayed very close to some contacts at First Up, which was actually how kind of like that was one of the ways that you and me were able to get connected. I had a coworker who actually started on the same day as me, left on the same day as me, connected me with our mutual connection, and then he connected me with you. So just like all these
You never
little.
know how it's going to piece together.
Yeah. So, but I've been networking pretty much since day one, but have definitely gotten more strategic, and have learned a bit more about, how to approach conversation and things like that.
One thing that you did that I really caught my attention right away was on your LinkedIn. You have like your banner is customized to kind of, it's like, it's not an application, but it's like a highlight of who you are and what you bring to the table. If you guys check out Rachel's LinkedIn, it's really cool what you did on the banner. Did you make that, or did you use a service, or how did you set that up?
I did make that. I actually used Canva,
Canva's great.
to
Yeah.
just make a simple little information board, and that was actually one of the things that my career coach mentioned to me, and I think I think that that's one additional location to highlight contact information, if you want to be reached out, but also how you would narrow down the top 3 or top 5 strengths that you bring to the table. So,
Yeah, I'm always telling salespeople, make it easy for your customers to buy from you, but also make it easy for people to hire you. You have your phone number, your email in the banner. It makes it super easy to contact you. I really like that you did that. I wanted to also talk about, you said that you post on LinkedIn right away. Did you take like a mental health break? Did you do anything to kind of reset mentally? How are you just kind of getting through the day to day?
I think because I was so thrown off guard by the whole thing, I was like full speed ahead. I was so excited for the next quarter at my company, and I was like, I can't lose this momentum. Like I want to be able to just drop all of the value immediately on the next company that I work with. And I definitely, I mean, at the time I didn't think that I would be sitting here months in the future still without a role, but I will say I've learned so much about how to present myself, and also about the things that I'm actually good at. I think I've just learned a lot, but it was a lot. It actually, like, the shock didn't hit for probably a month. I was just very focused on keeping my head down, trying to figure out what were the things that I can control immediately. So I was very much determined to just, figure out what are the things that I need to do to be successful in my next role.
And besides enablement, you're also a badass kickboxing instructor. Were you doing that before you were impacted by restructuring, or okay? So does that kind of help with like your mental getting out there and exercising and getting to do that stuff?
Yes, absolutely. I think that kickboxing is it's been one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do. I've been doing it for about 3 or 4 years now, and I've only been teaching for like maybe 6 months. But it's been so helpful, I think, just for seeing people in person because I've worked remote since the beginning of the pandemic. And I think getting to see people face to face and get to know other people while also being known has been just so uplifting. And I mean, I'm so lucky to work at a gym where the people that come in are just so kind and excited to come to class. So yeah, it's definitely been motivating. And I think that in a way there is quite a bit of overlap between the trainings in enablement and leading a class, trying to get everyone motivated and engaged, feeling the energy of the room. So I think that in a way it's kind of helped me stay sharp with those training skills.
Yeah, if you want someone who can motivate people, who can command a room, who better than a fitness instructor? Because people don't want to do that stuff, and you're pushing them to do it. I'm gonna have to get out to Austin to do a kickboxing class with you sometime.
Yes, that'll be
That'd be so
so
much
fun.
fun. It's been a while for me. I'll be struggling. So let's talk about some of your enablement skills. What was the stuff that you were focusing on in your previous role, and what kind of things in enablement do you like to focus on? What kind of stuff do you like to do?
So when I started, my company was very much at the hyper growth phase. So I built out the entire onboarding program for all of new business revenue.
Wow.
It was very fun. It was really exciting. It was nerve-wracking because it was my first enablement focused role. Like I had done enablement things for previous companies, but that wasn't my sole job. I was a sales manager while also offering trainings for best practices or building out content, but I was solely responsible and evaluated for the success of the team and hopefully building some momentum. And I absolutely was able to accomplish that, which was something I'm so excited to be able to say. The onboarding program was completely built out within my first couple of months of being at the company. And I also really leaned into core competency models, which was something that I had learned about actually from LinkedIn. And so core competencies are definitely a framework that just, I mean, it sounds boring, but it's something that just gets me really excited because I love the organization of prioritizing projects and training curriculum around what the bottom line skills that are actually going to promote better performance.
Yeah, and so I try not to do any selling on this show. So without mentioning any vendors specifically, when you were creating the new hire program and onboarding, were you working with any vendors, or were you using some like online tools, or were you creating everything from scratch? How did that come together?
So when I started, we actually were transitioning our LMS and CMSs. We had been using a tool, and then whenever I joined, we were regrouping and collecting all of that information to then be transferred to the new platform.
So
And
that's
that
a change
platform,
management project and a whole other thing in itself besides creating the new hire training.
yeah, it was it was a lot, especially with me being brand new. I mean, I did not understand anything, my first day coming into the job as far as how content was organized at this specific company because it was so different. But it was cool to be able to just build out the way that content was organized and the way that content was condensed for one pagers and things like that, for me to be able to do that from scratch. So it was a lot, and it also took a lot of collaboration with the marketing and product team, but eventually we got everything into a really good spot to where content could be easily reached. If we had any sort of e-learning courses then we could quickly, upload those to the platform, have a quick debrief in a live training, and then direct everyone over to, the modules that we had created.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to be juggling all at one time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was a lot.
And were there any metrics that you guys were tracking around content or learning, to track those programs?
We did do certifications, which my CRO was a big believer in making sure that everyone's knowledge was up to date every few months, every 6 months, sometimes every year, but we were very much a learning first environment. So we did certifications for the core learning decks that new business sellers and also any seller in the business needed to know in order to present to a customer. So certifications were probably the biggest thing that we would look into, but we would also utilize tools like Chorus and Gong to diagnose call quality and things like that. And mentioning the competency model, I did very much align those behavioral metrics to the performance metrics for, like how efficiently are sellers able to weave customer stories into their pitch.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about these competency models. I'm not very familiar with it. I'm a used car salesman turned software salesman turned sales enabler. So I bring some of that like nitty gritty sales to my role, but I don't really know. Still, I'm learning about like these core competencies and some structure around training and like adult learning. So I don't even know what to ask to get you to start explaining it to me. So like, what do I need to know about core competencies?
So core competencies are a foundational framework that basically narrows down the core skills that are needed in order to be successful within a given role. So that should look different for each department team, I would say. Like, new business sellers, like account executives, will probably have, 5 core competency skills that resemble the sales development team. But they will probably have some differences in comparison to the account management team versus the product team versus the customer success team. So, being someone that hasn't worked every single department of the business, which is, I think it's impossible. I don't know how you could do that. But in order to get that intel, I really had to lean on research, networking with other colleagues that were leaders in those different departments, seeing, what really are the main skills in order to be successful in that specific department. But I also leaned on the leaders to better understand what do you find in consistently successful sellers or product managers or what have you.
And how do you do the research? Is this like you get like the email that says on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is you love it and 1 is you hate it, how much do you like Jello? And like you have all these different questions you got to answer. Is that how you do the research for like competency models?
I started with Google. I think that now with the emergence of Chat GTP or GPT, I am definitely leaning on that much more because Chat GPT it's much more personal than a Google. So I would definitely lean on that as my starting point. And then there's different articles. HubSpot has a lot of information that I gathered around like competencies or like high level skills, things like that. But yeah, just lots of research. And also, I mean, LinkedIn, just following different speakers or different leaders in different parts of the business. That was also something that I really leaned on. So without LinkedIn, it would be much more challenging to actually hear from individual product managers or customer experience leaders, in order to present what I think the competency skills should be to the leaders, and then those leaders actually confirming whether or not they agree that that is a skill that they want to really focus on as being a core skill.
And when you do all this work, does that go back like into the hiring process, even like when they're looking at new candidates for a specific role, they're saying, hey, we know our best people have these 4 or 5 things do we see that in this candidate?
That's a good question. I actually wasn't really involved in the hiring side of the business. If we were to have built out the enablement team more, I'm sure that I would have been involved in that. But as far as the broader team, I really made sure that I had 100% buy-in from all of the different leaders in order to make sure that, we were all in agreement as far as what we consider excellence to look like for, their corresponding team. But I would definitely hope that those things would also be applied to hiring because, if we're able to do the front load the work of determining what makes someone successful, then, that also is kind of the key to hiring as well.
Yeah, I'm so interested by this. This is not something that I do. I need to start thinking about this for my teams. Like, how would I attribute them into different groups? Do you do this for only the sales team, or did you work with like customer success or support or any other functions like in go to market besides sales?
So we did later on hire enablement folks for the CX team and also for more advanced account executives. But starting out, I was very much the headpiece of understanding what are the competencies that we need to narrow down per team and kind of handed that information off to those new hires that then, focused on those specific departments. But yeah, I definitely built the foundation as far as, the core skills for excellence within each department.
That's cool. You have some really interesting skills that you bring to the role. And I think someone's going to be lucky to have you. So if you're watching this and you need some of that good stuff, Rachel is currently available. By the time we put this out, she's probably going to find something great. But look her up on LinkedIn. Before we end, I just want to talk a little bit more about, how you're spending your day to day, anything you want to share with other people kind of in sales enablement they're looking for new roles, anything you want to tell the world about, but the whole world doesn't watch this show, not yet. Anything you want to tell people?
Soon the whole world will. But I really have been trying to be very aware of my emotions going into each conversation because I think it's all about quality. I think that, you can apply to hundreds of roles a week, and we're learning time and time again from a lot of different people on LinkedIn that that's just not working. So I'm really trying to focus on the relational aspect because, now is the time that I can really get to know who my potential hiring managers are going to be, or who my potential managers are going to be. And I want to make sure that, we're a good fit because for my next role, I really want to stay at the company and grow and be able to provide all of the impact that I know I can. So I've really been focusing on networking to get to know different like-minded folks in the industry, and not necessarily lead with, hey, can you give me a job? Like, I think that's not how my personality is anyway. I think that can like kind of be a bit annoying. Like if somebody were to come to me and say, hey, do you have a job? Can you just hire me right now? It feels like, after a few months, it definitely feels like, there's more anxiety than there had been in the past for a lot of folks. But at the same time, like, this time is still precious. And I think that the universe has a way of, putting the right things in front of us when it's time. And so I'm really making sure that I'm leveling up my skills. I'm taking time to just process each interview that I do have. I'm also going to networking events. I went to a few at the very beginning of my unemployment, and now learning about all of these different organizations in sales enablement, like Sales Enablement Collective, Sales Enablement Society, Women of Sales Enablement. I'm definitely leaning onto those organizations because it's just so great seeing that there are a lot of people that are willing to help, and even just share feedback or advice around your resume or your LinkedIn profile. So I would say just a healthy mix of all of those things has been the ways that I've been making sure that I'm productive and I'm using this time wisely.
I don't want to speak for anyone that's transitioning into a new role, but if it was me, I'd be panicking and like looking for a job immediately. But I wonder, like, are we doing all of us ourselves a disservice by applying for a job and then someone who really is passionate about working, in manufacturing or in life sciences doesn't get a shot at that role because so many people applied just to have a job. And I can't judge anybody for doing that because I would do the same thing. But it's a tough like a catch-22 situation almost.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And like the more time goes by, there's definitely moments where I'm like, oh, I just want a job right now, like just a job. But at the same time, I like definitely want to be in it for the long haul. And I know this about myself. Maybe some people are different. It's really hard to get on board with a team where you don't jive with the leader or the product is not interesting to you. And it's really hard, especially in enablement, where you have to be like the number one cheerleader and advocate of the product to motivate the rest of the team, aside from leaders, of course. But it's really hard to do that authentically if you are not bought into the company mission and all of those things that I mentioned.
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there. I mean, maybe people are passionate about med devices and machines that make pens and stuff. That's not me. What kind of stuff are you passionate about? Like you do the kickboxing. If we get find a role for you, maybe like at a kickboxing company that needs enablement, that would be a great fit, or a sports company. But like, what kind of stuff are you passionate about that might be the kind of company you want to go to work for?
I definitely want to work for a company that has high quality offerings to their customers. And I think that consistency needs to be cascaded internally as well. Because, people have to be motivated and excited to come into work because the leaders and, the teammates are just awesome people and want to see each other succeed. I think that those two things need to be in alignment in order for me to feel just like I'm in the best environment for myself to succeed. Industry, I'm pretty open to any industry. I care more about quality, making sure that customers are actually heard.
I love it. Well, if you're watching this and you're thinking Rachel is exactly the kind of person we need at our company, you can find her on LinkedIn, Rachel Antone. If you're watching this and you are looking for a new role, be sure to check out our Seek, Search, Succeed guide. We'll link it in the comments below. Rachel, big thank you for joining us on the show, and we'll see everybody next time.
For sure. Thank you, Jared. Thank you for having me.